So today I'm going to be going over my polyphonic synth for my final project. I chose this project based off, from project number 3 that was assigned by us. I'm going to talk about what I changed, what I didn't change, pretty much just go into depth about everything, why I chose this project, and basically, to start it off, I just wanted to say that I chose this one mostly because I just thought I liked it the most. So yeah, let's get right into it. As you can see, very generally, I tried to keep it pretty neat and tidy. For starters, I got oscillators 1, oscillators 2. Both of them have an interchangeable wavetable position for 3 different waveforms. I have it all set by different MIDI controllers. I don't have a MIDI controller currently because I'm using that of Arvin. Shout out to Arvin. So, for starters, as you can see here, alternates between 3 waveforms. I'll talk more in depth about those in a moment. It's kind of quick as you can see it on display there, which was a neat thing I decided to add. We got the detune, self-explanatory. The detune increases the frequency of one of the oscillators to slightly get that nice spread sound. That spread is like, gives it that nice width that everyone likes. Yeah, I got my main ADSR here. The main ADSR is pretty much the entire thing, which is the signals being sent through. Got attack, decay, sustain, release envelope, and it's pretty simple. Yeah. And this is some of the most of the new stuff that I've added right here. The new stuff that I've decided that I really thought I wanted an attention. I didn't add a lot, but I felt like it needed to be mentioned. Is a wet dry filter for my ADSR filter. I thought it was something that just would tie the entire project together. So I got all the way wet, which sends the entire signal through the filter. And all the way raw, or dry, which sends the pure signal out. And somewhere in between to get this nice blend. Yeah, I think it sounds pretty cool. And then you got, obviously, switch between many different types of filters using Bike Quad. So back to the low pass filter here. And next we got the LFO modulation. It just follows a nice low frequency oscillation, which is set because of the wavetable positions. If you send it alternate between, it alternates 2 out of the 3 waveforms. I'll go into more depth about that momentarily as well, like you mentioned earlier. And this is kind of what it sounds like. You can kind of hear the difference there. And then we got the main filter ADSR. The cool thing about this is where all the magic happens. We got the attack, decay, sustain, release, but instead of this time of following the signal, this is purely controlling the ADSR filter, via ADSR. As you can see here, got attack, nice and long, short attack, decay, sustain, and release. I got a 1-minute demo track, which was a requirement of the project number 3. I thought I would just leave it out because it wasn't required for my final project. I just thought it was just worth mentioning that it was there to begin with as a buffer. And let's jump right in to see what we have. So, for starters, I'll just talk very generally about what's going on here, and I'll go more specifics in a few things that I feel that I need attention. And I'll conclude with basically another little melody. So for starters, we have note in being packed in to velocity and the MIDI note. Then is sent to my polysynth. The velocity is then sent to the ADSR, which the volume, or the gain I should say, in general terms, is being set via the ADSR envelope, while the MIDI note is switched into a frequency, which is then set to the oscillators. And then from the oscillators, and generally, it will go back out and then into the outside world. But before then, it goes into the master fader, because that's kind of important. And then from the master fader, the signal gets divided into two parts. It goes into two of these multipliers here. And this is where the stuff that I added for the wet dry that I thought was most important. So it goes, before it goes anywhere else, it splits between the raw and the filter. The filter sends it to one, and the raw is get to the other. All the way dry, you can see it's set by 1 here and 1 by 0. 0 multiplies the signal by 0 for the ADSR filter. As a result, it's quiet. The gain is at 0. At 1, the raw signal is multiplied by 0, and as a result is unchanged. If I make it all the way wet, the pure signal of the biquad filter is heard, whilst the raw signal is not, as you can see here. Yeah. And that's pretty much, and then from there, the signals are combined. 0 plus 1 equals 1. And in this case, the raw signal is heard, and it is set to this nice little clip thing, to a clip tilde, to just avoid a clip, almost like a kind of lazy limiter, and then is sent out to the world to hear. So we can go a bit more in depth now. So if you open up my polysynth, we notice we got the oscillators 1 and 2 modulation here. So let's see what happens there. So if you open it up, you notice I have Patcher's oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. Both oscillators are identical, and you see it's pretty simple. Basically, I have 3 waveforms. I have saw, rectangle, and triangle. This is where the tri-fader comes in. So basically, I have it when it's all the way to the left. I have, as you can see here, saw being all the way at 1. When it's completely in the middle, 0.5, or really close to them, I have it all the way to rectangle. And when it's completely in the right side, I have it all the way to triangle. And that being said, it does the same thing for both, depending on the positions here. And then they are blended nicely together, and then sent out to the world to the things that I mentioned earlier. As well, as you can see here, I also have the detune. The detune also goes through the poly tilde synth. You can see it entering here. As you can see, it goes in, increases the frequency either by 1 or 2, a little bit of the patcher here, of all the oscillator. Just a little bit right there. It increases. And then it just basically increases, as a result, increasing the frequency slightly. We'll ask the nice spread of one of them. Next, I have the main ADSR, which I mentioned earlier. So you got attack, decay, sustain, release. They all go into my polyphonic synth, attack, decay, sustain, release. And that's what controls the main ADSR envelope, which the velocity from the note in is received. Next, I got the filter ADSR, which is the stuff that I really enjoy, and this is why I mostly worked on the filter for, besides cleaning this up, as my main part of the project. So I have it all nice and tidy in the corner here. I just basically have it all packed in, all clean for my sake, and then sent to a ADSR pack, which I like to immediately unpack over here, and then it's sent to my patcher. From the patcher, you can see attack, decay, sustain, release. And then I basically, for both of them, including the main ADSR and the filter ADSR, I times them by values that I felt in milliseconds after I either divided them by 127 or not, would give me nice lengths, I should say, for what I'm looking for. So you can see attack, decay, sustain, release in milliseconds. I have basically just made this nice little table for my own sake. Yeah. So when the velocity is selected, I select 0. When it's not 0, then the signal is sent through, and I just have it twice. I know I have it twice. The reason why I have that is in case I decide to do any changes in the future. As a result, it sends one a bang, some 0 and 1, which is the ADSR follows. So back to where I was talking about earlier, the 0 to 1 of the ADSR is sent out, and then basically after some multiplying, is set a snapshot, which basically takes up what it sounds like a snapshot for every 5 milliseconds. That signal turns into a number, and that number gets outputted from the ADSR patcher to anything of my choice. What I chose to do is I send it to a cutoff frequency of my filter, which is why after I change these things, you get this nice little animated cutoff. Yes. So pretty much the reason why I chose this because I thought it was really fun. It really expressed my EDM capabilities. I really like to enjoy messing around with filters and different sounds and modulating and modulating and messing around with oscillators, I should say, and modulating the said waveforms is quite fun to me. And I thought, hey, if I can mess around with different filters, I feel like Max really benefited from me for that. And it was pretty much all I really wanted to do. So we go back to recap. As you can see, oscillator 1, oscillator 2, the wavetable positions, the detune, made ADSR for the signal to be followed through, wet dry filter, which this follows, the filter of my choice, the filter ADSR, which this thing is animated against, and the modulation. So I'm going to conclude with a little melody of my choice. Thank you guys for listening in, and keep patching.